Good morning, Mr. Michael Parker.
Good morning, Jen.
Tell me a little bit about what you do at CI Web Group.
Right now, I'm leading design, leading multiple teams, whether it's branding or web design. That could be the landing pages. Also includes design discovery. That goes for workshops, for branding, for landing pages and web design as well. That helps touch the conversion rate optimization. So think user experience, not just what you see, but how you go through it, right? So all of these different things, and looking towards optimizing and really getting more conversions throughout all this for our clients.
You've got a big history, a lot of experience in the branding space. Talk to me a little bit about your experience in the past.
Yeah, I actually have a lot of holistic experience from branding, UI, UX, user research. I started as a photo editor, actually, so I have experience also working my way up the ranks on the job. So I've learned a lot along the way. I also have some development background through that. So that all comes into play when it comes to designing, especially when I'm leading cross-collaborative teams and different design teams, because as you know, branding is much different than web design. And web design is even much different than product design, like user experience and user interface design, as those can be components of web design. It's a whole different practice of itself. But there's a lot of parity between the three that work really together, and I try to lean on those throughout my experience in leading these teams.
What would you advise someone who doesn't have their branding guidelines that's going through a website? Is this their forever house, or should they just buckle up, launch the starter, and come back, or should they just start with branding?
Yeah, actually, a few things. I would advise someone who came to us in that situation to zoom out even further. As we're already zoomed out and thinking brand, we're thinking website. I would say, okay, let's strategically look at both at the same time, and that's where something like a good strategy call would come into play, where we can take you through a workshop and come up with your brand core, which is the mission, vision, and values, the why behind the what. Figure out that brand messaging, figure out the identity behind the basic identity, the building blocks, if you will, behind what your brand is going to present itself as, and even as well, that's going to help for the branding project or the web design project. And that way, while we're still figuring all of that out and weighing the business goals, the brand core along with the desired vision that we're going towards, then we could say, okay, it makes more sense to rebrand first, or it makes more sense to go straight into the website with the MVP, maybe iterate on the brand over time, and then we can massage that in as we're building out phase one, phase two, and then up to like V2 of the whole website. So a lot of different ways to go about it, but really what I would do is zoom out and have that strategic call first.
How important is it to be the purple elephant, to not look exactly like every other brand?
So something that I always try to hit home with any logo project, and it could be for a small brand, a big brand, it doesn't even have to be HVAC specific. This is just my golden rule, is that you don't want to create an original logo, because striving for originality is going to drive everyone crazy. You're going to stand out in the wrong ways unless that's part of your vision. But what you want to do is create a distinguished logo. And so that way you could be in a pool of other HVAC companies, Mike and Sons, Jen and Sisters, whatever it's going to be, and we could still have similar parity between our logos, a similar feeling, a similar personality, but stand out. That's where the distinguished comes into play. I feel like we're not seeing too much of that in a lot of industries right now. You're seeing it in the AI and Web3 space, with a lot of the 3D push and kind of a lot of design starting to look similar in one way. You're seeing it in the HVAC industry and services industry, where design's going in actually the opposite direction, but it's all looking a lot similar in that same way. And I think the answer there is really just finding a way to distinguish yourself. And again, I'm famous for design discovery. It's my favorite thing, and you can't have enough of it. Discovery never ends. But having a really good design discovery early allows you to identify, how do you distinguish yourself? Because that's the big question. How? Like, okay, that sounds great. I want to distinguish myself. I understand what you're saying. I do see all these logos, all these mascots. They're just slightly different. The colors slightly stand out. At the same time, you could drive two different trucks down the street and you might not know who to pick because they both stood out to you equally, right? That becomes a problem. And that's the issue that we have today. And that's the issue of not having a distinguished logo. Yeah, so those early strategy calls and especially brand identity sessions would really help us to identify that.
All right, so there's different types of branding and different rationale and reasons to when you need to start having that discussion. So it might be you're building your first professional website, no more DIY project. It might be you're launching a new company, you're rebranding your existing company, you're acquiring a plumbing division, or you're merging a company. What what's the difference, and what do you recommend for each one of those? How quickly should they get involved in branding when they start to even think about those decisions of, do I want to merge in or hire a plumber or electrician, or I want to launch a new line? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, my personal thoughts I think are vastly different than a lot of my peers, and it's just because of my experience. I think the brand should be one of the most pivotal things that companies focus on early. It's how you're it's how people identify who you are, right? It's not just your logo and your colors, it's not just your website, it's not just where we present these elements, these building blocks of your brand. That's the little pieces that make up your brand, but that isn't who you are. Like these clothes are part of what make up my style, but it's not Michael Parker by any means, right? So in order to do that, I just really think that it's finding that balance of those building blocks and who you are and being able to convey that through that whole strategy. In order to do that, you got to go from the very beginning. If you start somewhere on half of myself, I'm not going to show up and build a company and really scale myself. I'm only going to show up half full the whole time and never represent myself fully. And that's what a lot of companies are doing for the sake of the dollar, for the sake of getting the views faster, for the sake of getting out and getting the reach faster. And I understand that the economy and the demand necessitates that sometimes, but when you can, it's really pivotal to try to hone back in if you're in those situations. Pull back like a couple weeks. Let's look at the brand. Again, we can have that call. There's ways to do it in smaller periods of times. There's ways to do it incrementally in phases, and there's ways to do just overall come in and revamp your whole brand from the beginning in a whole large process. But there's a way to make it work for everybody. And typically, that's why I say it's vastly different. A lot of companies don't do this. They start with like their cousin, which I was that cousin at one point in time, that was designing logos.
So
Yeah, exactly. Yes. And you probably had family members being like,
clip
hey,
art.
yeah, clip art, some figuring it out as you go on the job, right? And a lot of companies are going with that solution and it's working to get them started, but they're failing to capture an audience that's going to stick with them.
I've seen companies build brands that are very, very localized, and then when they do want to expand and move over from the high desert into, closer to the bay, or they want to open up another location, it doesn't
Yep.
fit.
Yep. That's one of those things you
Yeah.
that's one of the things you uncover in the strategy session too. Like, is this something you plan on scaling? Do you want to franchise this one day? Are you trying to sell this off and go retire into the sunset? Or are you trying to keep this close to home and have, one solid business that you pass down to your kids, or maybe one or two small ones around your local area? And all that matters into your initial starting point.